Hello, I'm James from Rivervales. Today we're going to be completing our weekly walk-around check of our minibus. This is the check that we want to complete at least once a week, and this is our minibus. As you're watching this video, I'll assume you've some additional responsibilities for your organisation's minibuses. So you might be interested to know Rivervales has a free app where you can complete and manage your weekly and daily checks. I'll tell you more about it at the end. As you'd expect, the weekly check is in a little bit more detail than the daily check. That just enables our obviously daily checks to be a little bit shorter to save our staff members a little bit more time. And with our weekly checks, we go into a little bit more depth to make sure that we're checking everything for the week ahead. So as I approach the front of the minibus, I'm just making sure there's a section 19 permit. It's in date, it's valid for the organisation. And then as I just come round, I'm just making sure that there's no leaks or anything underneath the vehicle. I'm also making sure that it's not lopsided or leaning towards any side. If it was lopsided, that would tell me that the suspension's gone and that the windscreen and everything is intact. Let's head into the cab. I'm going to put the ignition on and now I'm going to turn on all of our lights. So I'm going to put my lights on, I'm going to put my full beams, I'm going to put my hazards on, and I'm going to put my front and rear fog lights. And that should leave all of my lights on and flashing at me. At this point, we can check our brake lights. So what we're doing is we're putting our foot on the brake pedal. We can use a colleague or a reflective surface such as a window or a car. Look over our shoulder and make sure that we see our lights illuminating in the reflective surface. Right, so let's jump out of the vehicle. We're going to leave the ignition on, but we're going to turn the engine off. We want to start on the driver's side. So we're making sure that all the bumpers are in okay. The driver's side of the windscreen's in good condition. All of the lights that we put on this side are working. And then we just want to make our way around, making sure that our indicators are flashing at us. Now we want to check the tyres. So we want to make sure that we've got plenty of tread over the centre 3/4 of the tyre, and there's no cuts or bulges anywhere. And if you have a little look along this kind of line here, there should be a little rubber bulge. That rubber bulge is set at 2 mil. So you know if everything is above that bulge, you've got plenty of tread on there. The legal limit on a minibus tyre over 3.5 tonnes is actually 1 millimetre, so it's slightly less than a car. While we're down here, we've just finished doing the tyre pressures and the tread. We just want to make sure that the mud guards are in place, that there's nothing along the side walls of the inside of the tyre, and that all the locking nuts are obviously secure and everything is tight. As of February 2021, minibus tyres can't legally be older than 10 years old. Now this little number here is 4 digits, is actually a date stamp. Now the first 2 dates are the week and the second 2 dates are the year. So this tyre was manufactured on the 6th week of 2022. So this tyre would need to be changed by the 6th week of 2032. If there was any issues along the way and you are using our app to complete the check, you can take a photo and make note of the damage. This would then appear on your organisation's dashboard as an issue. We're now going to start moving towards the back of the vehicle, so we're just going to make our way down, making sure that there's no damage on the bodywork or the bumpers, making sure that everything is just as it seems. And then as we get to the back, we're going to check our back tyre. We're going to do everything like we did on the first one. So we're going to check the tread depth indicators, make sure there's plenty of tread on the tyre. We're going to make sure that the pressure is correct with a pressure gauge. We're going to make sure that the mud flaps are in place and that they're obviously doing their job. And that there's nothing kind of in place at the sidewall, there's nothing on the inside of the tyre. Some minibuses do have twin axle at the back, so make sure that you're checking both tyres should you have twin axles. This one just has the single. Now that we've done the driver's side tyres, we're going to make our way around to the back of the vehicle. We're going to make sure that everything is obviously illuminating in the back instrument there. We're going to make sure the doors are openable from that. We'll make sure there's a number plate. We will also make sure that obviously these reflectors and these sensors are clean, so they're going to work obviously when you need them. And we're just making sure that this panel, again, everything is lit up and working as it should be. Now that we're coming around to the passenger side of the vehicle, we just want to make sure that our tyre again has plenty of tread, the correct tyre pressure, make sure that obviously the mud guard is in place and doing its job, make sure there's nothing on the sidewalls, and then as we make our way down, making sure there's no damage on the vehicle. From here we want to open the side door, make sure that the side step presents itself, and then we've just got one more tyre to check. So once we've done this tyre, making sure that the tread is obviously sufficient, you've checked the tyre pressure, check that obviously the mud guard and everything is in place, and that there's no damage along the sidewall, just like we've done with the other 3. We can then tick off this side of the vehicle. Now we've made ourselves back to the front of the vehicle, so now we've checked that side, we just need to check this side. Want to make sure that obviously this wing mirror is flashing at us from the indicator. Make sure that obviously all of the lights are illuminating there. Make sure there's no damage on the bumper or the front, and making sure obviously our windscreen on this side is all intact. Okay, now we're going to go under the bonnet. So for this vehicle we need the key. So what we do is we put the key in, we turn once to the left, once to the right, and we can lift up and then secure with our stick. So now we've got the top up, we're basically going to be looking at our fluids. Now this is an electric vehicle, so it's a little bit different to your standard diesel models. We're going to check the brake level fluid. We're going to make sure that we give it a little bit of a wobble, make sure that everything is between the minimum and the maximum. We're going to make sure we got windscreen wash again. This tank is quite low down, so it's quite difficult to see. So we just want to make sure that we're obviously topping it up on a regular basis, making sure that we've got some. And we're just making sure that all the rest of the fluids are between the minimums and the maximums. So the main vehicle we've been looking at today has been electric, but I just want to show you under the bonnet of a diesel engine that we've got here. So I've just popped the bonnet open. I'm just going to get underneath it. So now what we've got under this bonnet, which is obviously slightly different to the electric, is we've got a few different fluids. So we obviously want to make sure we've got our brake level fluid, that the minimum is obviously between the minimum and the maximum. Then we've got our engine coolant. We want to make sure again all the fluids are between the minimum and the maximum. Now the washer fluid on this one is right around the corner and it's quite tricky to get to. So the main check we're going to check that one with is just by obviously using the onboard controls. And then obviously we've got our dipstick. So we just want to check our oil. So I'm just going to pull this out now. So we pull the stick out. We wipe away the oil. Be careful not to get it on your clothes. Then we stick it back in. Pull it out, and then make sure it's between the minimum and the maximum on the dipstick. We now want to do some checks from inside the cab, so I'm going to jump on board, and what we want to check is we want to check that we've got windscreen wash and that our wipers are doing their job. While I'm here, I also want to check the horn, so I'm just going to push that down now, so that works. I also want to make sure that when I turn the ignition on, that there's no warning lights appearing on the dashboard. So obviously we've just checked that. Now there is one that is left on at the moment, and that's for the handbrake. Now on this vehicle, it is an electric handbrake, so I just want to make sure that it is on, and I just want to make sure that it turns itself off when I want it to come off. On a standard vehicle, if you've got a manual handbrake, you just want to make sure that it's not at the top of its travel, and that it's not all the way to the floor. So it's got a bit of leeway there, and there's a bit of tension, so you know that it's doing its job. Now also on board the vehicle, we want to make sure there's a first aid kit. So the first aid kit on this vehicle is inside the door. Now with the first aid kit, I want to make sure that everything is in date, everything is date stamped, and then we want to make sure there's a fire extinguisher. So the fire extinguisher is under this seat. You just want to make sure that the needle is within the green. That shows it's got pressure and it's going to work when you need it. Now the last two checks I just want to do while I'm in the cab is one, just to check my brake pedal. Just make sure it doesn't feel spongy or it doesn't go all the way to the floor, that it is just kind of feeling like it should do. And then I just want to make sure that my power steering is in order. So I lean on one side, I turn the engine on, and then it should just naturally give. And that's how I know that I've got power steering within the steering wheel. They're the last two checks I do within the cab. Now the last thing to do is just to jump in the passenger part of the vehicle and just do the last checks from back there. So now that we're jumping into the back of the vehicle, just to make sure that everything is obviously where it should be, the first thing that I'm going to be looking for is that obviously there's no rubbish or debris or anything along the floor of the vehicle, nothing that's going to cause any damage as we're driving or that's going to come into contact with any of my passengers. Then what I'm doing is I'm making sure that every seat belt is obviously fit and working. I'm going to have a little look at them, have a little pull, make sure that they're obviously not twisted and that every seatbelt has a seatbelt clip. Once I've done that for every seat, I want to make sure that we've got brake glass hammers. Once I've done all of that, I'm happy that my vehicle is safe to go. So what I want to do now, I'll fill out my paperwork, sign everything off and hand it into the office to say it's been done. Obviously these checks are vehicle dependent, so if there's anything different on your vehicle than the one that we've used today, check your manufacturer's guidelines, check your manual, Or if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us, and we will obviously be on hand to help for you. So that's the weekly check complete. Both the weekly and the daily check can be completed on Rivervales' free app called My Minibus Manager. It's easy to use and you don't have to be a Rivervale customer. Simply go to rivervale.co.uk/minibus and the My Minibus Manager page to set up an account. Once you have access to your dashboard, you can invite drivers via email to join. Their completed checks and any issues, as well as your checks, will then appear on the dashboard and any issues will be flagged up. Thank you so much for your time and good luck with your walkaround checks.